Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the ASAP Network and to another edition of Throwing Hands. My name's Syed Galani. It's the 14th of January here, 2022. In America, obviously, it's still the 13th of January. Here it's 1 a.m. My co-host today, the wonderful Mr. J. Ness. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to get on and be able to connect, make that connection across the pond, bring some MMA talk, some sports talk to the world of to everybody. That's what we're after today. So
everybody out there, I'm doing great, brother. I'm absolutely fired up, ready to go. I've been looking forward to today's episode. And obviously the fight game is always filled with stories. There's always so much to talk about, so I'm just looking forward to getting right into it.
Perfect. Well, let's get going. One topic I like to kind of bring up right away, because I know me and you kind of briefly went through it in the back, but the pay-per-view increase, the price increase. Let's kind of jump into that. Let's go over that a little bit.
Yeah, well, from what I'm reading on internet, sorry to cut you off there. You want to say something first?
No, go ahead.
So, yeah, to do with the price increase, I mean, I'm not going to lie, Jay, it's really annoyed me as a lifelong MMA fan. I just want to get right into this and get it out of the way straight away. I'm not happy with that. Even though I live in the UK, it doesn't really affect me because here, if you have BT Sports, it's a part of the package. But I don't like in North America, I don't like how they're treating the fans. That's the core demographic of fans in North America. And they've put the price up 3 times since 2020. It started off, it was, I believe it was $59.99, and then they raised it to $64.99. That was actually the start of 2020. Then it went up to $69.99. And then now they've increased it $5 more to $74.99. Tell me, Jay, what do you think about these sudden increases? It just keeps going. And on top of that, Dana White is talking about how in 2021, it was their highest year of pay-per-view buys. Supposedly, they've done a record of 8.6 million buys. But if you're making this much money, why are you putting the prices up and not putting the fighters' pay up?
Well, that last part is what is so, big to me, because where is the money going? If we're not increasing the fighters' pay, if the money's we're not increasing, it's not like we see more fights on the card. So where is this extra money that he's generating with these increases going? And I'll bring up Jake Paul. This is a good place to bring up Jake Paul, because Jake Paul said it himself. He's like, yo, you're paying your fighters $12,000 minimums. They're spending 2 and 3 months in the gym preparing, away from their families, away from their social lives, away from what is the normalities of normal human beings on an everyday basis, because they're in this camp and they're putting their minds and body and their soul into it. So they're removing themselves from all distractions. And this is a 2-3 month preparation. Then you go into fight and you earn $12,000. And I'm not saying every fighter does, obviously, but even if we're talking about 20 grand, you earn $20,000 off the fight. And we're hoping, win or loss, that you don't suffer any type of brain injury, anything head wise, because then you're suspended for another 90 days before you can even start camp again to prepare for your next fight. Exactly. But with that $20,000, you still got to break down and pay your publicist, your manager, this guy, the guy that carried your bag in, this guy, so really after the fight, you're back broke.
You got nothing. Your taxes, you paid all these different things. You're broke. You've got nothing. And like you said, they're fighting maybe 3 times a year. And if you have even the slightest injuries, the doctors
Right.
are giving huge suspensions. You know, if you've lost a fight, and even if you didn't get badly knocked out or finished, you take damage every time you step in there. So they're not accounting for any of this. There's no health insurance. There's none of that. And one more thing I wanted to point out, I like how you pointed out, where is this money going? Because they're also saving a lot of money with hiring venues because they're doing so many shows in the Apex. So they're barely even
Right.
hiring out big arenas. So they're saving monstrous amounts of money. I mean, obviously, a businessman will say it's business. They're doing business. They're running a business. However, they're not really treating their fans with any respect, nor their employees.
Yeah, and then Jim, you have a good point because that is the normality now. Is it's like group funding for these UFC events, and I think that some of that also combined with the streaming has partially the reason, or is partially the why Dana's increasing, because he is seeing a smaller pool from his pay-per-view events. I also will say that the last 2 years of COVID has really decimated their revenue streams as well. So when we look at it as well, said, is this a thing where maybe this is us paying for Fight Island?
Yeah, I think so. Because on top of that, what is it? Something insane like 500 million a year the contract is with ESPN, where they just all they have to do is make sure they supply a certain amount of shows every year. If they can guarantee those shows, that money is getting paid to them every year. So we know they've got several income streams, several, even with the pandemic happening, because conveniently the Apex was built just before the pandemic. So lucky for Dana White,
Right.
he had a multi-million-dollar, probably even more. I don't know how much it cost, but several millions at least.
Ridiculous.
A huge complex built and ready. So they didn't really suffer the same way other sports did during the pandemic. I think the UFC was off for 5 or 6 weeks, and then they resumed with their events.
Well, but see, now this brings us to kind of backtrack a little bit and go back into the fighters and go back into the fighters' pay. Well, That's the problem as well, because when you really look at it and you kind of break it down, Dana White takes 3 weeks off or 6 weeks off from business. He shuts doors for 6 weeks. We'll even give him 2 months. We'll give him 2 months. We'll give him 8 weeks. He shuts door for 8 weeks. And the fighters, they're at home with their loved ones, whatnot, whatever, that everyone's going through at that time period. Then they get a call and says, hey, well, we got fights starting back up in 30 days. I need you to get back into the gym. Well, then they don't even have a gym available because gyms are shut down. Now These guys are like training in their basements, training out of their buddies' living room that they turned into a dojo for the month of May because the gyms are shut down, and so there's a lot more that I think that goes into this question that raises eyebrows to me on another level than just money out of my pocket or a sucking money from other people as far as that's concerned for Dana. It's like, bro, at this point, when are you going to actually do something for your fighters?
Exactly.
Because in a minute, Bellator and them are going to take over.
That's it. That's perfect how you just mentioned that, because that was what I was going to segue into next. What do you think are the repercussions of this long term? Obviously, you mentioned one thing. You're going to see a WWF versus WCW scenario in the 90s, where WCW came in, started paying more, doing more money into the production, more about the wrestlers, etc. And WCW pushed ahead of WWF. Now, obviously, WWF pulled it back when they hired Mike Tyson for WrestleMania, and then they got the ratings back. But I think because we live in a social media age today, and some of these topics are becoming more and more apparent and regular, i.e. fighters' pay, i.e. how the fighters are treated compared to other organizations, i.e. the fact that they can have their own sponsors in other organizations. In the UFC, you can't even have your own sponsors other than Reebok. Oh, sorry, well, now it's Venom. And I believe they do actually pay something now, but it's very minimal. It's very minimal. You know, just really quickly, I just want to mention back in the day, Vitor Belfort, before obviously they brought in Reebok and that deal, someone like Vitor Belfort was making upwards of $5 million per fight, mostly through sponsorships. However, a lot of fighters were able to do this. They were able to get external sponsors, and that could cover their costs. That could bump up their pay. So you didn't really hear a lot of complaints before because they could have as many external sponsors as they wanted. But then the UFC took that away, and it's affected people so badly. So yeah, back to that question, sorry. What do you think the long-term repercussions of this are going to be for the UFC? Like, eventually, the fans are going to have enough of this, and the fighters, like you mentioned.
Right. And before I answer that, hello Rio, welcome. Like, subscribe, share. We do this every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. So we appreciate you.
Lots of love from London, Rio. How you doing, sir?
To answer that question, I think long term, you dropped it. You hit the nail in the coffin when you said the WCW and WWE comparison. Because I think long term, the UFC is going to have enough money to buy out one of these smaller companies that are making way. But I do think Bellator is really about to secure a spot in the limelight that is needed for real diehard MMA fans. And the reason why I say the real diehard MMA fans is because I think Bellator is going in a direction to where they're going back. Because I felt like UFC really took a turn when they got Pride. When they purchased Pride, I think they really took a turn, and they really kind of tried to influence what they had going on with the Pride purchase. It's almost like they tried to bring that whole aura of Pride over to and replace the aura they already had in UFC.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I completely agree with you.
And now, and I think that Bellator is one of those ones to where if they gain enough ground and enough money, they can go back to that old school Pride, more raw, more rawness that MMA is all about. And UFC's turned into this kind of polished marble floor. I want to be a shiny, trophy on the wall,
very
type
corporate,
of thing,
very corporate. Yeah, like very corporate.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Like, I completely agree with what you're saying. That makes perfect sense. Because straight away when you mentioned Pride, I just pictured in my mind exactly. Bellator do have that vibe because they go for the pageantry. They do those tournaments. They do make it more about the fighters. The Grand Prix, I beg your pardon, they do with the heavyweights, etc. They actually do it in multiple weight divisions.
Mm-hmm.
They put a lot more effort into the fighters, into marketing them, into respecting them. And obviously, Scott Coker is a great guy. Scott Coker is so reputable, especially in California, because long before he ran Strikeforce, he promoted kickboxing in San Diego for many years. And he has a respect of those areas, San Diego, San Jose, all these areas in that part of California. He has huge respect, and that's his territory. So Strikeforce used to have massive events in those areas. And as you'll know, Jay, Strikeforce built up to the point where they were neck and neck with the UFC in terms of marketability and attendances and notoriety. And then the UFC obviously swiftly swallowed them up, bought the company. And they thought that would be the last of Scott Coker. And not to put down the UFC too much, because I'm a fan of the UFC, obviously, but I just care about MMA and I want it to be projected in the right light. But Scott Coker is Dana White and the UFC's biggest problem. I'll tell you that right now, because there's no other organization can deal with him. He's the man who can do it because he has the respect of the people. He has the respect of the fighters because he was also a martial artist as well. And also, he understands what the fans want. He really understands what the fans want.
Right.
And I feel Dana White sometimes misses a trick with that. He really does, because Yes, he puts together fun fights. Of course he does. A lot of the fights in the UFC are phenomenal, but it's the way they're put together, the way people are forced into fights, the way champions are kind of disrespected at times and kind of cornered into accepting contracts and accepting fights, or else all this kind of stuff is going to come back to bite Dana White in the backside, I think, very soon. Just like you said, people at Bellator, they're owned by Viacom. Viacom and Paramount have got equal money to Endeavor, equal funding they have, So, I mean, in the long term, I agree with you. You're going to see Bellator now creeping in front because of what you mentioned. And I think because of some of the things I've mentioned as well there, they understand what the people want, and the diehards, like you mentioned. I liked how you mentioned the diehards, because it is almost like Bellator has that old school UFC feel at the time when they bought Pride, etc., early 2000s. It's got that feel to it, where the diehards are kind of drifting towards more Bellator. So, yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying there. I think we're going to see that soon.
I want to bring up this comment here. Hey, what's going on, John? Nice to see you. Been a long time, sir. But is Conor on steroids? Dude got jacked in the last 6 months. I was just talking to someone about this the other day, one of my friends, and and I explained it to him in a way that I don't think a lot of people take into account. Conor McGregor is not a small guy by far. Conor McGregor walks around way bigger than what you guys see him in on TV. So imagine this guy that walks around I'm just going to say the word huge. He walks around huge at all times outside of the ring. And even as big as he is outside of the ring, keep in mind, this guy works out all day. This guy has strenuous cardio exercises and routines all day. 7 days a week, this is what this dude does. Now, he comes out in his last fight and he snaps his leg. So now he's off his feet. He can't move around. He can't train. There is no cardio. So all he's doing now is eating. And that's not good for a man of Conor's makeup, with the size that he is already, and then the amount of cardio and the amount of exercise that he puts in on a regular basis. So you give that man 6 months on a couch with no exercise, yeah, he's gonna look big as shit. And he can still lift weights on his upper body, but he can't touch his lower body. So the dude's gonna look like a balloon for about a year.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, he walks around about 175, 180 at least. He walks around it, and then he cuts weight to get to 155. I've seen him in person myself. Yeah, he's quite bulky. He's not a small guy. His natural walking around weight before he starts camp, at least 175. And that's it.
And that's if he's staying in shape while he's eating. Because if he's not, Conor is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he's on steroids, even though steroids are quite frequent. No. We know that it's quite frequent in the game. A lot of people use it in all sports, and they get away with it. But I don't think he is. I really don't. I don't think he's taking steroids. I think he's trying to strengthen his body. Yeah, I think he's trying to strengthen his body up, his legs, etc. So whatever, and I don't know what he's trying to do, to be honest. Nobody really knows what Conor's doing. I mean, I want him to come back and fight Nate Diaz in a trilogy match. I don't know what he's going to do this year, but that's what I want him to come back and do. He looks big. He looks strong to fight at 170. Fight Nate Diaz. Do that trilogy fight. It's a perfect fight for him in 2022 with the losing streak he's on and the options he's got. Obviously, Conor McGregor has always got options, but the big fight right now for him is Diaz 3. Come on. Diaz 3 all the way. But yeah, Jay, I just wanted to move on to the next topic, if that's okay. Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal, UFC 272. The grudge match. So just off the bat, I'm absolutely excited for this one. I cannot wait for this fight. What's your initial thoughts about this bout?
I'm excited. I'm excited because I think that they match their shit talking. And it's rare that you get two guys that just really match evenly in the ring and out the ring. Because like even when Covington fought like Usman, Usman's not that back and forth talker like Covington
No.
is. So it was kind of like it made Covington look like a bully.
Yeah.
But Masvidal will talk some shit. So
Yeah.
it's going to be really interesting. I think the build up this time is going to be fabulous. And I really enjoy those who are not only fighters but also entertainers,
Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
let's be honest, this is adult wrestling. This is, and when you were younger, you were so into WWE and WCW. As you grow older, you wanted to get real. So this is adult wrestling, and
Yeah.
we still love the entertainment part of it. So, and I think a lot of people don't give Covington his shake on the entertainment level that Covington provides to the sport.
I completely agree with you. Look at his last fight with Usman. I mean, the pay-per-view sales speak for themselves. Maybe not Conor McGregor numbers, but definitely an asset to the UFC. Absolutely. Colby sold that fight himself alone. Usman didn't have to do
Right,
anything.
right.
He just sat there. He just
No,
sat there and smiled. So I completely agree. The entertainment, the press conference is going to be amazing. The back and forth talk is going to be off the chain, really. And then what do you think skill for skill? Because Colby is the favorite. He's opening as a favorite. Obviously, he's got the superior wrestling advantage. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, Masvidal, yeah, his wrestling does lack a little bit, but he's got great defense and they've trained together for years. So Masvidal's going to know all his entries. He's going to know all his entries to takedowns. He's going to know what to work on. So I don't know. What do you think about Colby being the favorite for this?
I don't think it's right. I always thought that Jorge was always not given the proper
Respect.
respect
Yeah.
going into most of the fights he has. Yeah, and I include this one in and off the rip because right off the back they're giving Covington the nod on Jorge, and
Yeah,
let's
straight
not
away.
forget Jorge's right, and there's no reason for it. Let's not forget Jorge came from the backyard. Jorge came from a Kimbo networking line. You know what I mean? So, and that's the other thing. Like you mentioned, they are evenly matched. I think Covington is a better wrestler. All know, but over the years, Masvidal has improved his defense.
A
And
lot.
Suggs even John right here even put that up here. But if it comes down to it, Covington is too much of a he's too much of a he lets things get him out of his own game plan, and I think that
Yes.
might come into
Yes.
play
Yes.
here because you don't want to just stand in Jorge.
That's the thing. I think exactly. Jorge can stick to his game and what he's good at better than Covington because, for example, Covington against his two fights versus Usman. The first fight, they didn't go for any takedowns. But the fight number two, obviously, Colby got him down very momentarily, few seconds, split second, and he got back up. But I mean, Covington completely went out of his game plan. He just wanted to stand and bang with Usman. So I think when it's a serious grudge match, and Colby's really amped up and fired up, he wants to just stand and trade. He doesn't even want to use his wrestling. He wants to try and knock people out. So I think if he tries that against Masvidal, it might backfire against him a little bit because I believe Masvidal's striking is sharper, cleaner, more technical than Colby's.
Wait.
Colby's striking and punching. He's got great cardio. He can throw a lot of strikes, but I feel it's more of a more well-rounded wrestler MMA kind of striking. Masvidal, on the other hand, has got very sharp boxing. He's got a sharp jab,
Right.
and the way he sets up his crosses and hooks it's lethal, man. It's lethal. So I believe in the striking. I give Masvidal an advantage there, and if Colby doesn't play to his strengths, it's going to backfire on him. I believe if he wants to stand and trade with Masvidal, I don't know if Masvidal will knock him out, but I just see his striking more crisper, just more technical, especially with the punches.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Magdival knocked him out though, because and it goes back to kind of like what we said. I mean, Covington is he's an entertainer. He really is. As much as he's a great fighter. Don't misconstrue my words.
Top class.
I love him as a fighter, but
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
an
top class.
entertainer, right? But he's an entertainer, more than less. And I think that, like you mentioned, like I alluded to as well, he gets too sometimes caught up in the moment. He lets the crowd, he lets people influence him into other things that I don't think he was intending on going down that path or those type of things going into the fight. So again, I like Jorge in this fight. I think Jorge needs this fight more than Covington. I'll tell you, I say that. I think Covington has more alleys.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, to be honest, I gave both of them respect for taking the fight because it's a risky fight for both of them. You know, it's a 50-50 fight. I mean, you can't get more evenly matched than this fight, in my opinion. And just the amount they know each other for all the years, the grudge match, putting it on the line in front of millions of people. I mean, I need to give them both respect for taking this fight because see for a moment, by the way, Jay, I didn't think Masvidal would take this fight. I thought like because before he avoided it, so I thought, why is he gonna take it now when he's coming off a loss himself from Usman? Colby just lost as well. Obviously, maybe it's the best time to catch Colby now after 2 losses, but I don't know. I respect them both for taking it because it's a risky fight, and Covington just fought for the belt, in November there and lost, obviously, 5-round war, obviously, with Usman. And he's going right back into a really, really hard fight again.
Right.
So props to them, man. Props to both of them for stepping up, honestly, because we need these types of fights in the UFC. We need these types of fights, like you said, with the pageantry, with the shit talking, with the entertainment. We need these fights that catch the audience's imagination.
But going back to what we opened up with the increase of the pay-per-views and all this money that they're changing around, a guy like Covington is so detrimental and so important to the UFC because he is one of those grudge guys. He'll go in there and take the fight that everybody's scared of, and you have to have those guys. And by now, the type of fight that Covington has put himself on the line for and risked himself for, he should be top notch as far as paid. And that's the thing, that I don't think that Dana White, and I don't want to target Dana White, but it's his company. But
yeah, it's his company.
I like Dana White.
Yeah.
Right. But, at the same time, I don't think he understands, as a whole, when we sit back and we say fighters are underpaid, let's be honest. 3 fights a year, right? Let's give them 20,000. I mean, I'll stay with that marker because the average makes 12. That's the minimum. So let's stay with 20,000. Let's just give them a little bit more. Let's say 25,000. So you make 3 fights in a year. You get 25,000. That's 75,000. And you still got to pay again your manager, your trainer, your advertiser, your publicist, right? So we're at let's take 20,000 out of that. So we'll take 20,000 out of that. We're at like 50, and I'm being modest with these numbers. It's more like 30,000 probably out of that, 10,000 per fight. So you're looking at 30,000. So you made 40 grand. So you're telling me you got beat up and you put your life on the line, you let your blood, your sweat, your tears in the octagon to be a call room clerk, as far as the pricing is concerned.
It's insane, by the way, the fact that these world-class athletes in today's age, these guys are getting paid peanuts the way they are, and they're at the top. They're at the top as well. Look at the NBA, look at the NFL, the NHL even. These people are paid properly. And there's a healthcare system in place. I mean, even the guys on the bench are making more than the UFC fighters. The guys on the bench.
Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. So this year, the college football landscape changed. with the brought in the contracts of NIL and all this good stuff, where now college athletes that are going to school can now make money while playing for the college. So now you're telling me that this freshman in college that's playing football for an organization is making more than a fighter that's fighting 3 times a year.
Yeah,
Not by a
that's
little
insane.
bit, by a long shot.
By a landslide. Yeah, it's insane. But that's the thing. I mean, then you look at boxing. Obviously, people are not paid well in the lower levels of boxing either. But the guys who should be getting paid a lot of money, the guys at the top are all getting paid. The guys at the top are all getting paid. Even the ones who you don't really know about that well, they're getting paid good money. Just off the top of my head, light heavyweight Artur Beterbiev, world champion. Not many people really even watch his fights because he's not that popular. But he gets paid mega bank every time he fights. It's in the millions every time he fights. Even though he's not fighting Canelo or anybody like that anytime soon. So it just shows you that contrast of difference. I mean, it is insane that championship level guys in the UFC, like you said, are more often than not making the same money as someone who works in a like you said, a showroom for cars. I mean, it's crazy. You could get more money being a manager in a bank, just working in a bank. It's insane. These guys are professional athletes, and they should be paid like professional athletes. And they're not even just pro; they're world class. They're the best of the best. Do you know what I mean? It's
the best of the best.
It makes
you and that's the thing too. Sorry, no, but and that's the thing too. When you put it like that, we got to take a step back and look and say, like you said, the best of the best, because this is the best company. This is the number one company in this sport. This is the leader. This is the innovator in this sport. So if the leader is not doing what's like we said earlier, Bellator is knocking on the door, and it's not about are they out now. It's not about can you see their fights. All that's there.
Yeah,
they're fighting in the same arenas.
Sorry, Jay, just to cut you off. Sorry, there's a comment there. John is talking about Covington when he went up against Warley Alves in UFC 194. Yeah, I remember that fight. Did you watch that fight against Warley Alves? His loss that was his first loss in the UFC. Yeah, John, good. That's actually a good shout. He got submitted. He got guillotined in that fight, I believe.
Correct.
From Warley, yeah. So Warley Alves was actually really good when he first got signed. I don't know what happened to him. I actually know Warley Alves, by the way. I've actually trained with him in Brazil. He's actually a friend of mine. And he won the Ultimate Fighter Brazil. Yeah. It's funny how John mentioned that. I remember that fight crystal clear. So he got submitted, but I mean, come on, John. Since that fight, though, Colby has been undeniable and unstoppable up until he fought Kamaru.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. That fight kind of triggered something in him where he just went nutso. And after that fight was actually when I started to notice that Covington did not give a damn who you were.
Yeah.
He did not give a damn who you were. He didn't care what the odds were. He didn't care what the people said that the techniques don't match up. He didn't care about any of it afterwards. It's like something clicked him and said, if I'm going to be the best, it has to start today. I can't take another loss. And he just went in this mode, and again, I hate Covington as far as who he usually goes up against are usually my favorite fighters. But so in a fan aspect, I'm always the guy rooting against him in the octagon. But as far as Covington as a fighter outside the ring and who he is and what he means to the UFC, he's one of the best ones out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you're giving him what he wants, Jay. He wants you to hit him. That's what he wants. Because he realizes
right.
He's got that whole Floyd Mayweather thing going, and so does Jake Paul on that hand. They've got that thing going where as long as you're watching is the main thing. You want someone to lose or you want them to win, you still want to watch. So that's the thing.
Well,
so it's brilliant.
Well, he's smart. You can't be a superhero if you don't have a villain to fight.
Absolutely. But yeah, just want to it moves us on to our next topic, and it's related again because you mentioned Dana White, etc. again. So it's perfectly segues into the next topic here. And I just want to touch a little bit on the owner of One Championship. He had an interview on the MMA Hour on Wednesday, Chatri Sityodtong. And I don't really want to go on about the interview too much, but they were asking him questions about, it was a joke, right? They just put out something on the One Championship social media feeds about a potential fight between him and Dana White. And with tongue in cheek, he wrote, obviously, send me location, blah, blah, blah. He's just joking around, obviously. But then he went on to talk about how him and Dana White are two completely different people. And I liked how he broke it down, because I think these kind of conversations need to happen. They're really relevant, because he mentioned that Dana White's a great businessman, obviously, phenomenal what he's done with the UFC. However, he is not a martial artist, and he does not understand fighting. He is a fan. He's not a part of the community like him. Chatri sees himself as a martial artist. He's trained his whole life. And he said something like, he said that when you get punched in the face and you get choked out, you don't feel the right to disrespect people in public, like the way, obviously, and it makes perfect sense what he's saying, because Dana White isn't a fighter. He isn't a martial artist. He's a fan. He's a massive fan. He loves fighting. He absolutely loves to watch fights, but he's not a fighter. And he has trained in boxing extensively back in the day, but he was never a world beater. He was never a fighter, and he doesn't train every day. He's not like a lifelong martial artist. He's a businessman. He's all about the business of fighting. And I just think that was really interesting. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but I think people like Chatri, people like we talked about before, Scott Coker, these types of people are needed in the MMA world. I'm not even that much of a fan of One Championship, because I don't really like how they mix everything together too much with the K1, Muay Thai, and the MMA. And they even they're doing a hybrid rules fight between Demean Johnson and I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, sorry. But they're doing that fight for the belt, and it's going to be one round of stand-up, one round of MMA. It's going to be one round of this. So that stuff's a bit too crazy for me. But I've got a lot of respect for how One Championship treat their fighters, because I've been to One Championship with my fighters before. Because as I told you previously, I manage guys myself. I've been to One Warrior Series. I've been to Brave. The organization as well, that's based out of Bahrain. These organizations are a lot smaller than the UFC, but the way they treat you when you're there, oh my God, is night and day difference from the UFC. I haven't personally taken any of my fighters to the UFC yet. However, I know many people who fight on the UFC regularly, coaches that travel, take their fighters, and they tell you all kinds of stuff, how they're treated, and they feel like they're just a number on a sheet. They don't feel like they're properly respected. They don't feel like they're given the time of day. Yeah, they throw them a tracksuit. They throw them a kit, a UFC kit to walk out in, which is great. They get to take it home as a souvenir. But, I mean, they're not properly looked after. There's lots of issues with food money and things like that they don't really talk about. A lot of fighters complain because they're not getting the right money for food, because they actually give you close to $100 a day for food when you're there. But a lot of fighters complain that they don't get it and things like that. And only the star names get special treatment, and lower names on the card don't really get treated as well. There's lots of things that go on that, if you look at One Championship, I mean, it's basically like Pride happening in Singapore, the way they do it, because they have so much respect for the fighters. They put so much effort into the pageantry. Even if the guys aren't that good, like they're not world beaters, but if they're a champion or if they're doing well in the league, the respect they get, the coverage they get, the marketing they get, the build-up they get, it's insane. Like, for example, Ngannou versus Gane happening at the end of this month. Barely anybody even knows about that fight. They're not even promoting the fight properly, and that's two guys going up for the unified heavyweight championship, two absolute killers. I just don't get it, honestly. The way they're treating them, the way they're treating Francis in this situation. Yes, Francis isn't a world. He's not like a Conor McGregor. He's not a Ronda Rousey. He's not a Brock Lesnar in terms of the numbers. But he's your heavyweight champion, and I don't think anybody's going to beat him anytime soon, other than Gane, because he knows his inside tricks. I know he was asking for a bit too much. He was wanting a lot of money. He's wanting to be, I don't know what he wants. He wants to be like LeBron James, I think, but they should work with Francis more. They shouldn't just alienate him. They shouldn't just, I mean, I just hate
How much do you remember? Do you remember what he was asking for?
I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but he's wanting a significant increase. You know, he's wanting to be treated like a lot of these mainstream sports are treated.
But he should be.
Exactly.
But
Yeah,
I don't know if he should be. I don't know if he should be up in the 20s and the 30 million per fight or nothing.
No,
but like,
no,
let's
no.
look at it this way. He's making $500,000 a fight right now. Do
Yeah.
you know how much Demean Johnson is making at one?
Oh, he's making a lot more. He's making a lot more.
$750,000 a fight in a weight class that I don't think is getting as much attention naturally as you know, the weight class. I think when you say a heavyweight, that automatically makes just this aura over it.
You're like the big time. You think, oh, yeah, it's heavyweight.
Right.
It's the big guys going at it.
Right. When you think boxing and you say heavyweight, you automatically think Muhammad. You automatically think Mike Tyson. You automatically think Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis. You don't, you know what I mean? So and a lot of people, they couldn't tell you what weight class Floyd Mayweather is fighting in. They couldn't, so the average fan, it's easier to follow that word heavyweight. So when I look at this, he has a point.
Yep.
He has a point. I'm the propeller to your boat.
Yep.
You want to go somewhere? You need me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, at the end of the day, I'm on his side. I think he needs to be reasonable, because you got to understand as well that you're not just doing this for yourself at this point, because you're going to break the door open for other fighters behind you. So I think you need to be reasonable in what you ask for so you can accomplish this.
I totally agree with you. Totally agree. And it all just starts with a conversation. And the thing is, they just need to stop ostracizing people who want to renegotiate, who want their value. Just don't alienate them, please. If the champions, the guys at the top, they want to renegotiate, they want to talk, they want more money. There's a way of doing it. You don't need to blast them publicly the way Dana does sometimes.
Right.
And again, I love Dana White. I've got so much respect for him. But yeah, it's just the way he publicly blasts his own fighters sometimes. He's opened the doors for people like Jake Paul to openly criticize him because of the way he behaves in press conferences and things like that. He's just so dismissive towards anybody who wants to question what they're doing. And I just think that's a wrong way of doing things.
And going back to, what your point was with bringing up, that discussion, when I look at, again, like we mentioned, time and again, and yes, Daniel, you're 100% right. Dana wants to be in control.
Yep.
Dana wants, and that's the problem. So, and that's what I was about to get into, because that's the problem. That's the problem with having a guy that, is used to running an Albertsons or a local grocery store or a Walmart or something. And then they put him in charge of fighters. He doesn't understand the life. He doesn't understand what they're going through. He doesn't understand, when I'm in my prime, I got about a 3 to 4 year window. What do you mean I can only do 3 fights in a year? He doesn't understand these things. No. And that's why, when you look at these other promotions and you look at Scott and you're like, okay, he's making sense. Okay, he cares about the fighter's health. Oh, he wants to put money back into the fighters, which I don't understand. At any point in time, do you think, okay, putting money back into the business, you got to put money back into your fighters as well. That's part of your business.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. That Apex they built, I mean, the Performance Institute and the Apex they built. Come on, that clearly shows you they're just focused on building their business further and further and further and just dominating. They do not care about the fighters, and I completely agree with you. That is a part of your business. That's what they're missing. And Scott Coker is not missing that trick. He understands that the fighters are a part of it, and without them, you're nothing.
Right. And that's another thing, because like you said, well, look, if you don't want to pay me, I need to get paid. But then you go and you tell me that I can't go get I can't go get a sponsor?
Oh yeah.
You tell me I can't put a sponsor on my pair of shorts?
Yeah.
I can't bring my sponsorship to the pre-fight or the post-fight interview? So what do you want me to do?
Yeah. And they can't leave. And if they say, I want to fight out my contract and leave, they extend people's contracts. They delay their fights, then extend their contracts. And if they lose,
like they're doing.
Yeah, sorry, what are you going to say?
Like they're doing with Nanu.
Exactly.
I said, they're doing with Ngannou.
Yep, exactly the way they're doing with him. It is absolutely insane what they're getting away with. And that comment was bang on there. Dana wants to be in control. He loves to be in control. He absolutely loves it, and he doesn't want it any other way. But yeah, just moving on to our next topic, Jay, I just want to touch a little bit on some boxing now. I'm going to talk a little bit about Canelo Alvarez. I want to talk to you about his next possible fight. Now, there's been lots of talk about him moving up to cruiserweight and challenging Makabu. However, that fight's actually fell through now, and they're looking for a fight for Canelo back at super middleweight. And the key guys that they're thinking about, Joe Smith Jr., Jermell Charlo, and they were thinking about Beterbiev, but I think he's too big. I don't think Canelo wants to fight him, but it's going to be someone. I mean, I think I'm hoping for Jermell Charlo. I don't see why that fight hasn't happened yet, why it's not happened yet. But what do you think out of these possible people? Who do you think he should fight at super middleweight or at any weight, to be honest? Because as me and you know, Canelo can move anywhere between light middle to super middle. You can go light heavyweight. He's fought light heavyweight before. He fought Kovalev. He can do cruiserweight, So who would you like to see him fight next?
It's a hard thing, because I thought his last fight was probably the last worthy opponent I thought that was available right in his general proximity.
Mm-hmm.
As far as their resume,
yeah.
So it kind of, I don't know. I think that Canelo kind of needs to move up. Canelo needs to go into the higher ranks. He needs to. That's the only way that he's going to really be able to, prove that he's still getting better, because he is getting better. We see it every fight.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think his opponents. I don't think the challenge is getting better.
Yeah, absolutely. He needs a challenge. I think a guy like Jermell Charlo is a great fight for him at super middleweight. I think it's really evenly matched. I love Jermell's aggression. He moves forward. He's a knockout fighter. He is on a serious streak right now, and he's very confident in himself. Canelo's very confident as well. It's one of those clash of the titan kind of fights. But if Canelo doesn't fight him, because I think he will avoid him. I think they will avoid him. But the thing is, PBC before, they didn't want to put that fight together. But Al Heyman is obviously Jermell Charlo's advisor, and he obviously runs PBC. And he's opened the doors now for that fight. Like, it seems that he wants to fight now. He's looking and edging towards negotiations with Canelo. And Canelo, obviously, he has his team in place. They say Canelo gets the final word, but I don't think he does. I think he listens to his team, whoever they tell him to fight. Personally, I think he'll probably fight Joe Smith Jr. They'll avoid Charlo, unfortunately, because that's how boxing works. And I don't see him fighting Beterbiev anytime soon. I just think Beterbiev is too much of a threat.
I'll tell you as an Arizona guy,
Yeah.
I do like David Benavidez.
Oh yeah, yeah. In fact, that was another one I forgot to mention. Benavidez, he's up there. It's a potential fight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Benavidez, I think it will mean more. I think the Charlo thing comes down to money, because people want to see Charlo. People mention Charlo, and this is another possibility, but I think Fury would get folded. I think that he will put Fury in a suitcase, but I think David Benavidez is an option. He's a valid option outside of Charlo, since Makabu fell through.
Yeah.
And David Benavidez is exciting too. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the homeboy. I'm gonna say David Benavidez. I like that one.
And the thing is about Canelo, he's in a weird place in his career. Like you mentioned, he needs harder opposition now to keep improving because he's kind of
Right.
cleaned out junior middleweight. He's cleaned it right out, and a lot of super middleweight guys as well. They're not going to fight him. I mean, his last couple of fights, obviously Caleb Plant was undefeated. He looked like a worthy opponent.
He tore him up. And I'll say
Destroyed.
this too: whoever that was on the ringside that was able to pull their phone out and record him in Plant's conversation in the ring, oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
No, I didn't
Yeah,
actually.
I'm kind of good, huh?
That's mad. Whoever recorded that, man. Someone should give him a raise.
Right, because he would have pulled that out and get recorded, and I was like, I can't believe I'm hearing this.
Yeah, no, it's mad. It's mad. And Caleb Plant, you know what? He is a worthy opponent. He's lived a rough life. He's a strong, confident fighter, very strong mentally. Fights for his mother, his mother that passed away, etc. He has a real story behind him. He's a serious fighter. I first saw him in the Mayweather gym many years ago, training as a young up-and-comer, when he was only 10-0 at the time, 9-0, I believe. He was training over at the Mayweather's gym. I used to see him in a lot of videos and interviews, and it's great to see him develop, into a world-class fighter. But the way Canelo just went right through him and just... Caleb Plant didn't look even half the fighter he normally does. He looked like, in that fight, he looked like he was out of his depth, And I think that's the thing. You saw the same thing with Billy Joe Saunders. Every other fight he's ever had, no one can phase him. No one can pull him out of his game plan. No one can make him shook in any way. But when he fought Canelo, it just looked like the occasion was too much. Even for Billy Joe Saunders, a guy who's mentally sharp. He's sharp as a razor, But literally the first clean punch Canelo landed on Billy Joe was in the eye socket. Done. It's just absolutely insane how much better Canelo is than a lot of his opposition. It's crazy, honestly. He's leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of the talent out there, And I've got even more respect for Mayweather, for beating him the way he did. He never let Canelo even touch him once.
And that's the thing. I mean, if you can't touch someone, you can't hurt someone, and that's always been Mayweather's game. But one thing that I will say in this particular in this particular situation is that like we said already, Canelo has to go up. He's cleared out everything. It's kind of like the Triple G effect. He's cleared out everything. And to your point about Billy Joe and Plant and all them, and it's going back to Mike Tyson and guys like that, Muhammad Ali, guys that when other fighters who were good, they had the talent, they had the wherewithal to be in the ring. They were worthy of being in the ring with them. But once you get in there, they get starstruck. It's like basketball players that said, being on the same team with Michael Jordan, sometimes they get caught watching him. So, And it's one of those type of things that I think that you're going to see from time to time with Canelo Alvarez. You're going to see from time to time with Triple G. We saw it with Pacquiao. We saw it with Mayweather. We saw it with these guys. I mean, don't forget, was it Victor when Mayweather when Victor tried to like apologize to him, and
Yep.
Mayweather ended up almost knocking him out. So
Yep.
we
did.
we got to factor. Yeah, he did knock him out. So
He did.
we got to factor these things in. So I think that that's one big thing that we need to take into account when we do look at these things. Like Canelo Alvarez is a legend in flesh.
Oh yeah.
Right now,
Oh, yeah.
we're watching his legendary story, and we just are witnessing it in real time. And for a lot of these fighters, it strikes them.
Absolutely agree with you. It's funny you said that because I was watching the Canelo versus Billy Joe fight with my brother, and we were talking about. My brother mentioned how. Did you notice the second Canelo started to raise his game and noticed that he's going to start moving forward now and stop moving back and taking punches on his gloves? The crowd roared. It's almost like they're just chanting for their like lion to go forward. Honestly, it's like a coliseum almost, and they're all roaring for him. And Billy Joe's temperament completely went out the window. You saw the panic. You saw the not frustration yet, but the almost like, oh no, what's going to happen now? And Canelo just stepped up
right
10 levels, just pushed the pace and landed that hook clean right in his eye socket, and just he basically took the fight out of Canelo Canelo basically took the fight out of Billy Joe with one clean shot. It was one clean shot, and that's not being disrespectful to Billy Joe. I don't mean to be disrespectful anyway, but it was the first clean punch he landed. He stopped. He couldn't continue, and that just goes to show you how special Canelo is. He is in this supreme level because of what you said there. The way where fighters, when they fight him and they get in there, they are starstruck. The way they were with Mayweather, the way Keith Thurman was with Pacquiao. A guy in his 40s, and he ends up getting knocked out by him. You can tell Keith Thurman was starstruck in there. And there's many, many more like that. Like you mentioned with Michael Jordan, people who played in the same team. That is a real thing. That is a real thing. And when you are up against the pound for pound number one of your era, the chosen one, if you want, Canelo is, of this era, a lot of people don't know how to handle that kind of pressure. It's like when people fight McGregor. That pressure is real. It's real. And a lot of people can't handle it. Only very few have and can. But yeah, I just that moves us very nicely onto the final topic of today, and it is Amir Khan versus Kell Brook. Upcoming fight, 19th of February here in Manchester, the MEN Arena. It's sold out in 9 minutes. Jay, literally 9 minutes. The fight sold out. This is going to be a blockbuster fight here in the UK. Obviously, in global boxing, it's not the biggest fight, but it's two well-rounded guys, two well-known guys, two former world champions with a huge rivalry. Obviously, Amir Khan, the Olympic build-up, he went over to America, became a huge star in America, headlining shows in Madison Square Garden. He's fought at Madison Square, but it was the MGM Grand. MGM Grand sold it. Yeah. And he really made his name over there and became a global star, won the world title twice before he was 23 years old. Obviously, Kell Brook didn't have that same kind of upbringing in boxing. He came up slightly the harder way, wasn't given the same opportunities, wasn't given the same kind of limelight. Then when he beat I forgot his name right now. What's that fighter's name again? He fought a 147 to win the belt. Who fought Errol Spence not long ago? What's his name?
You're not talking about Crawford, are you?
No, not Crawford. Not Crawford. What's his name? He's retired now. He's just retired. Sean Porter.
Sean Porter. Yeah.
So when
he's a good analyst now too.
Brilliant. I love listening to him, and I love his dad as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant mind of the game, phenomenal mind of the game.
Yes.
But anyway, sorry. when Kell Brook obviously got his key chance against Thurman, he had to go to America to fight him as well. Using his pot shot style, he ended up winning on points, which is phenomenal. No one expected him to win that. But then ever since that fight, everybody in the UK, all they ever talked about was, when is Amir Khan going to fight Kell Brook? When are these guys going to fight? When are these guys going to fight? And for years, it looked like that fight's not going to happen. It's going to be like Ricky Hatton, Junior Witter, just never happened. It's going to be like all these Mayweather Pacquiao nearly didn't happen. People thought it's going to be like that kind of thing. Yeah, they took the time with that one, didn't they? They waited until they were old.
Yeah,
and but it's a similar situation, Jay. Like in the UK, people have been dying for this fight, and finally it's been announced. And in the UK, nobody cares if they're both in their mid-30s. They're on the downward spiral. No one's really bothered because, like what you said before, it goes back to what you're saying. It's like adult wrestling. We want to be entertained. We want the grudge matches. Yeah. We want to have a reason to tune in. Why are we going to just tune in to watch fights that we already know what's going to happen? You know, like a lot of boxing is nowadays. Jay, who wants to go to the cinema and you already know what's going to happen at the end of the movie before it starts? Nobody's going to go to that.
No.
You know what I mean?
But I'll just drop you off and pick you up.
That's it. But this fight has that. It has that sauce, that extra sauce. It has that crowd's interest. And I'm sure you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in America, I'm sure it's not the biggest fight people are talking about, but I'm sure in America there's a lot of interest as well for this fight.
Yeah, no, a lot. But you got to understand too, because I noticed you said kind of their careers are kind of like both down spiraling. I think more Amir Khan than Brook, because who has Brook lost to? Terrence Crawford, Earl Spence, and Golovkin.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know too many people that you put those three fighters in front of them and they pick up more than 2 wins. So, you know, I don't think Kell Brook. I think Kell Brook, this is a prove it fight. This is prove that you're still here. Prove that you deserve a rematch against Spence. Prove that you deserve a rematch against Golovkin. Prove that you deserve a rematch against Crawford.
Yeah.
You know, those are more along the lines of Brook. Khan, is this your farewell tour? Is this it? You know what I'm saying? Or is this a restart? So yes, we're in totally different situations. I think that both of them, I agree with you. Both of them could one of them, this could be the lights out fight, and one of them, this could be the start of. So I think Kell Brook, there's more incentive for Kell Brook in this fight to pull out a W. I think that the other thing, though, I kind of want to, bring up is I think Kell Brook over the last few years has had way more worthier opponents. I mean, you look at it. I mean, besides we had Danny Garcia, Carlos Molina. Then he had the Terrence Crawford, which he lost to. Sal Alvarez, he lost there, which that was a real good fight. That Sal Alvarez fight, Amir Khan, that was really good. But you flip over to, Brook, and we can go, back, and he has Luis Galazar. He has, let's go back further, because like we've already talked about, he had Ernie Smith a couple times back in his earlier of his career. And then you kind of go back up to lately, he shot Sean Porter. Then he fought Dan Owen, Frankie Gavin, Kevin Bizier, then Golovkin, Spence Jr., Rubchenko, Zarafa. Then you got DeLuca and Crawford, and now Khan. So I think that, like you said, Kell Brook hasn't always had a silver spoon. He's fought his way, and he's worked his butt off to get where he's at. And I think he has a better resume as far as who he's fought.
No, absolutely. And the gym he comes from, obviously, the Dominic Ingle camp in Sheffield, legendary gym. Dominic's father, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, sorry. But Dominic's father obviously trained Prince Nassim Hamed, legendary camps where they come from. And Kell Brook, yeah, he's
great fighter, great entertainer too.
Everything, the full package, arguably the most entertaining boxer of all time, him and Muhammad Ali. It has to be out of those two, the most entertaining.
I think those two, and I would definitely put Mayweather there. But those three fighters, to me, they're gonna put on the best shows. They're gonna put on the best fights. They're gonna make you laugh. Sugar Ray, you can put Sugar Ray on there too. But yeah, no, I agree. That just put a smile on my face hearing Prince's name. Even he's so entertaining.
Legend. But so just before we finish up, Jay, because it's been a really cool hour talking to you, brother. It's been awesome, but we've passed the hour here, so we're gonna finish up now. But just before we finish, I want to just get your take on who's gonna win and why. You've already told me you favor Kell Brook, but how is he gonna win this fight against Khan? What's gonna happen on February the 19th?
February the 19th, Kell Brook is going to show the world that he's still here. Mm-hmm. He still wants the big fights. He still wants the big names. And I think we're looking at, I'm going to give him 9 rounds, and I think he's going to put him down. Amir Khan, I love the dude. He's had a wonderful career. I think that that last fight, though, when I think, what was it? It was against Crawford when he got Crawford knockout.
Uh-huh.
And then Sal Alvarez knocked him out too. And that Sal Alvarez fight, Sal Alvarez beat the crap out of him.
Yeah.
Sal Alvarez beat the crap out of him. So, and I just think that, again, I'm going to go 9 rounds, and I got Brook.
Yep. You heard it here, guys. He's got Kell Brook beating Amir Khan on Feb the 19th. So we'll see what happens on Feb the 19th. I'm excited anyway. I cannot wait to watch the fight. It's going to be action-packed here in Britain for that fight, and obviously around the boxing world. Thank you, Jay. That's us at the end of our show for this week. You've been amazing co-host.
Yeah, and
me, brother.
Real quick before we go, I did want to put a couple things up on the screen. Tomorrow we do have an interview here with Stevie Ray, one half of the Harlem Heat. He'll be on here Friday, 7 p.m. Central, right here on ASAP Network. Of course, find us all over Tiki Live TV as well. So if you guys want to get that downloaded, you guys can stream us all the way. I think you guys can get that over there, right?
Yeah, you can get over here as well.
Perfect. So definitely download Tiki.
Yep.
Yeah, download Tiki TV across the pond. Definitely. And this was wonderful. I really appreciate us linking up, and you're a terrific co-host as well.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you next week at the exact same time on Thursday. See you later. Enjoy watching fights. And this is Throwing Hands, and this was your host, Saeed Gilani. See you next time.
All right.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays. Like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.